Have you figured out your niche? Are you helping adding value to other people's lives? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Munira's Musings with your host, co-author of Conversations with Top Real Estate Investors Volume 3, Munira Zahabi.
Greetings from Chicagoland. This is Munira, the founder and CEO of Kismet Ventures. I am the niche navigator and I help coaches and healers find their niche and markets to it. I have here with me is Jocelyn Kuhn.
Yeah.
Hi, Jocelyn. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. I am humbled and honored to have you on my show. I do these shows because I know that you're one of those people who enhance and add value to people's lives. And what we want to know is what is it that you do? So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a speaker, author, and a coach, and I just got done writing a book called Thriving Through Transitions. And so a lot of what I do is all based around the work around transitions, helping people through the darkest days of their life. And sometimes it's not the darkest days, but just big, significant life changes when, you go from being in college to having to enter the workforce, or from working to staying at home with little kids, or going through death, or kind of some of the things that happen with divorce and some of those challenges, career change, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what my passion is. And one of the things that I'm really focused on right now is helping people through those big, significant life transitions.
So how did you fall into this?
Well, my personal journey, I think, prepared me really well for it. So I was kind of going through life and everything, my childhood was wonderful and amazing, and everything about my life up until the point of 19 was really pretty truly amazing and magical. And I had great parents and played sports and, did well in school and all of that. And then when I was 19, we found out that my dad had been living a double life, and he was really actually doing a lot of illegal activities, and he was part of a drug dealing thing. He was had another girlfriend and another house, and it really shook my family up and threw us all for a loop. And because of the things he was doing, he ended up indicted for some of those charges, and then 2 years later sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for some of the things he was doing. My parents divorced like 6 months short of 20 years. And pretty much everything that I knew as my life, really the foundation of it was rocked. And so I started having this compassion and empathy for people going through stuff like that then. And then my dad actually ended up coming to live with me to kind of start healing our relationship. And he had to turn himself in. So he had 2 months before he needed to turn himself in and needed a place to stay. And he ended up passing away. I found him one morning on my couch, and he had died of an aortic aneurysm in the middle of the night.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's one of those things. Looking back, it's been 10 years now, and I was 22 at the time, and it just was the most devastating thing that possibly could have happened in my life at that time. And now I look at it and see where so many other positive things have come out of that negative thing that, I know it was all part of the plan. And so I really have a deep compassion and understanding for people going through some of those hard moments in life. But beyond that, I went through a divorce like 2 years later from my kids' father. And it just was another time in my life that I felt like, everything that I thought was my life was rocked to my core. And so my book is kind of all about really decompressing or deconstructing what the last 10 years of my life has looked like, and what things really helped me get through those tough times.
Wow, so much. Thank you so much for sharing, but so much in such a short time, right? And
Yeah.
you felt like it was raining and was pouring problems, right? So
Yeah.
how did you overcome your issues, your problems that were, I mean, this wasn't self-created, so it just fell into your lap. But and I know there's so many people out there who also are in the same boat. So how does one overcome this? And I mean, what are the steps that, if you can share some of it?
Yeah. So the 5 steps that I talk about in my book, the first one is all about the grieving process. And that was something that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross defined in her book On Death and Dying that she wrote in 1969. And it's kind of become this universal language for talking about the grieving process. But that's really the first step, is working through the components of the grieving process. And, you know, I mean, it starts kind of with denial, and you move through the stages of depression and bargaining, and then finally move into acceptance. And I think that that's such a great it's a great way to look at the grieving process, but it's only just kind of gets the ball rolling, in my opinion. I think acceptance is fine, but really, how do you get back into living again? And the second step that I talk about in my book is all about the reframing process, and how every seed that, you know, every negative experience in our life has a seed for something great to come out of it. And I talk a lot about Joseph Campbell's work and the hero's journey, and how, you know, without adversity and trials, there would be no hero to any story. So I really think that really learning that philosophy kind of made me feel like I was being granted access to this club of people that, you know, the greatest people in the world have all gone through some pretty significant adversity, and that's why we have so much admiration and respect for them, because no one wants to learn from somebody that's never gone through a hardship. You know, it's very easy to give advice when you haven't gone through anything. And of course, all of our hardships look different, and, you know, what is like excruciating for one person may be a walk in the park to the next, but it's really all about your own point of reference. So the third step that I talk a lot about is how to get centered in the present. And I think that that's one of the most important things we can do for ourselves, which, you know, I talk about meditation, I talk about breathing exercises and exercise, and even just getting out and exploring nature and having a strong gratitude practice. If anything has changed my life the most, I would say developing a sense of deep gratitude for the gifts that I've been given in my life has been probably the most important thing that I've done. The fourth step that I talk a lot about is creating a new and exciting vision for the future. I think a lot of times one of the hardest things about transition is we're moving from somewhere to somewhere different, and so many of us have never defined what that new place looks like. And so getting very clear and excited about what that new reality can look like is one of the biggest ways that we can help ourselves, you know, look forward and not look back on the times that we've lost. And the fifth step is just to take intentional action every single day. And one of the things that I loved when I was going through my coaching program that our instructor said, he said, you know, if knowledge were enough, we'd all be skinny, rich, and successful. And it's so true. You know, we have all the knowledge that we need, but we have to take action as well.
That is true. That is so true. And you're right, yeah, because most people I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are going through transition, as you call it, and they don't know how to center themselves. They don't know how to figure it out. And then they lash out, they cry, then you hear suicide stuff happening, you know, people who are trying to attempt to suicide. I used to work in hospitals. I saw a lot of that as well. And it's like, I've gone through my own walks of life, like you said, walk the walk, talk the talk, right? And so I've walked the walk too. And, you know, it's like, if you haven't done it, then you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But like you said, it makes a lot of sense. And what those 5 steps you just outlined are amazing, because just listening to that, if they don't go through your program, at least they have an outline, like you said, a frame as to,
Yeah.
I need to do this is my first step. And yes, you're right. Most people don't have time to grieve.
Yeah.
And or they get so angry, and I think that process is called denial. And they
Yeah.
just,
And anger. Anger is one of the steps too. Yeah. And
so,
a lot of people get stuck there and they don't move past it.
and they feel like that the whole world is against them, and why is it happening to them, until they come. I used to live with an old lady little lady who had lost her husband of 47 years, and she was pretty alone. And she was telling me that she would go to this grieving center, and it had helped her a lot, because I think it was offered through her church or something. But she said until she went there and actually met the other people that were going through the same thing, she didn't realize. She just thought this was her journey, and she was fighting alone.
Yeah.
And so she said, those grieving centers really helped. And she and I would, we developed a good relationship. We still keep in touch. But the thing is that those centers are also, they help people through the transition. So have you worked with these centers, or is this just a solo practice that you have?
So what it has been more one-on-one coaching, solo practice, but I'm actually launching a program in September where I'm helping people who are going through transition, and I have some pretty exciting things in the works for that. I have a couple of guest speakers who are going to be coming on to that, but basically it's going to be a group coaching platform, mastermind, and I'm doing it that way because I do think that one of the biggest things that we need is the community aspect of going through our transitions with other people who understand us and who can just have empathy and compassion. And it helps us, and it helps, everyone's helping each other, but it's also helping us to kind of, sometimes all it takes is a point of reference. I remember right after my dad died, one of my clients, I was doing hair at the time, she came in and she shared with me that her son had died when he was 3 years old. And I thought, okay, my life is great. My life is easy. So it's amazing how one person can come into your life, and in 1 second, your point of reference has completely shifted from, why me, poor me, everything in my life is horrible, to, oh my gosh, at least my babies are okay, And so sometimes, yeah, it's just, my mom used to always tell me that if you took your own problems and we all took our own problems and put them into a hat, we'd gladly take ours right back out. Because when you see what some of the rest of the world is dealing with, it pales in comparison. And it's always good to, I think, in our society, we have this upwards comparison in so many areas of our life, but really there's a whole different kind of comparison. And sometimes we need to remember that there's somebody comparing themselves to what we think of as our hardest days would be like the greatest gift that they could be given.
Yeah, my father always told me that, don't compare, because your shoe doesn't fit him or his shoe doesn't fit you. And I never understood that,
Yeah.
I was 12 when my mom passed away, and, it was a blow to me, because she was my best friend. She was my world right there. And a girl of 12, she needs her mother at every aspect of her life. And it was so hard. I would see other girls with their mothers, and they would go shopping, and I didn't know how to buy a bra.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just like, why was it me? And,
Right.
and my father always said, look beyond that. Stop looking at yourself, look beyond that. And you're right, because it pales, the problems pales in comparison to ours.
Yeah.
One thing you said was you did hair, so you are a stylist.
Yeah.
And so you went from a stylist to a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that transition.
Yeah, so that's been the most recent one. I did that about 2 years ago. I went back and I got my certifications for coaching. It's been something that I've wanted to do for a long, long time. And I have coached volleyball for 13 years, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of what I do. So I was coaching volleyball, and then I started doing all the mental training for the club. And so I would help them really on the mental side of the game as well as getting to coach. But then every time somebody would sit in my chair, they go, I feel like I'm talking to my therapist. And so, it was kind of a natural transition in a lot of ways. But I went back and I got the formal education and all of that to really dive into doing this full time. And my clients would call me their therapist instead of their therapist. So I would, I mean, I just love getting to help people in any way that I can. And really for me, it's always boiled down to that question of how can I be truly helpful today? And what can I do that is going to add value to somebody else's life? And for a long time, doing hair was a great way to do that because I got to make women feel beautiful and they'd leave feeling so happy, and just kind of that pause. I mean, everyone knows that has a relationship with their hairstylist. It's like, you share everything together and you have a very close relationship in a lot of ways. And so many of my clients have become great friends. And so it was something that it served me really well. I moved my salon into my home like 8 years ago. So I got to be home with my kids when they were younger. And now it just kind of felt like I was ready for the next challenge and the next step. And I lost some of the joy that I had for doing hair. And I was really wanting to move into doing this work more full time. I had always wanted to write a book. And so I felt like the timing was right. My husband and I talked about it, and we kind of agreed that the kids are a little bit older now and his work was really stable and all of that. So I had a little bit of time and space to move into that new career. And so I did both for about a year and finally just closed down my salon completely. So then it's been a kind of crazy journey, but
Hey, you know what? I have a hashtag that says reinvent yourself, right? And how many times have we done that, So
yeah,
for a woman, you're a daughter, a sister, a sibling, and then you move into the role of a friend, and then into a girlfriend, a wife, a mother. So and a grandmother in my case, so you have so many transitions that you do, but you have to reinvent yourself every step of the way. You did what what brought you joy. So I just posted something. I did what I had to do. When I came to this country, I just had to find an employment. So
yeah,
the first job I ever did was to just volunteer in my children's school. And I was a teacher back home. I didn't have a certification in this country, but you needed one here. So what I had to do was I just go volunteer, and I helped those children who were slow in picking up the reading skills. They would come to me for an hour and they would read. And I never understood that concept because we don't have that in Africa.
okay,
So, pull the slower kids out so that they can do something else. And the progress was better with those kids because they were working with me. And so they offered me an employment, but it was just 12 hours a week. So then you had to go find something else. So then that ended up having 3 jobs working, at that particular time. While the kids were in school, I did this. When the kids came home, then I would leave them with their dad and go do something else. I mean, so you had to reinvent yourself just to keep afloat.
yeah,
But it wasn't where your heart was. You just had to make do, And
yeah,
I help people. I'm the niche navigator. So I help people find their niche. And I'm finding a lot of people are just doing stuff they have to, as a Band-Aid. They put
yeah.
a Band-Aid on and keep moving because this is what they got to do. This is what how did you fall into this career? Well, I just fell into it because I had to do it. You know,
Yeah.
it's not where their heart is. And so you're helping them transition into a phase. And you did the same. You transitioned a few times, but you did where your heart is. And this is the message I keep telling people, that, you know, you will find your niche, but don't let go of your dream. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, as a therapist, you spoke to people and helped them, because I know my hairdresser, she does that a lot. It's okay, tell me about your day. You know, I'm just so chirpy and just so happy. And but when you go out living, I always tell my therapist, you know, my hair therapist, because I call them that, to say, why don't you just go home with me and make me look like this every day? Because
Oh yeah, we get that a lot.
and she just smiled. But you know, that, I mean, that you have such a wonderful story, and I really appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, thank you for having me to share it. I really appreciate that.
Well, for those people who are watching, if you are in transition and need help, Jocelyn's help, go ahead and send her a message, or send me a message so I can transfer that to her. We will share and subscribe this video on few social media platforms. If you like it, please share, subscribe, and like our videos. And we will have her information on the YouTube information as well, so people can find you.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you.
I know it's early in California, right?
Yeah, Oregon, but yeah, same time zone.
Oh, okay.
Almost 8 o'clock, so we're good.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group called Navigate to Your Niche.